All right. You can say it takes a bit of time to do the speeches, but that's a good thing. But I'm going to put to each one of you right now, before we get into the next piece, is did you learn something from what someone else said in their speech, or two, what you learned from an evaluator as an evaluator that you saw in someone's speech? So we've got a few hands up. Did we learn something from someone else? Yes? Nodding? Thank you. Appreciate that. Great. All right, Andy, what did you learn? Just quickly, just something. What did you learn from other people speaking or your evaluation?
I think the one that obviously was called out previously about keeping the audience engaged and describing certain things that they might not be across. And I think the way that John did it in contrast was really good. And I found it, like, even as someone that knew about the situation, I found it like, oh, wow, he's really thoughtful to include everyone else. So I think obviously whoever's isn't across it will also think that that's very inclusive as well. And obviously I think the other piece is just my direct feedback. It's the pauses, absolutely. And that's, I'll make sure I'm more aware of that for sure.
Good, good, good. And we just have one other. Mark, what have you taken away just so far from what you've seen today?
I think, pacing was probably a big one for me. Just the importance of a good pace to make the story more engaging.
Good. Thank you very much. All right. So now what we're going to be getting into is what we're going to do for next week. And our next week's speech, you can still use storytelling. But this is about what I call the conviction model. This is where I want you to take something that you have some passion for, a cause, a situation. It could be like a charity. It could be global warming. It could be about women's rights, gender equality. It could be about how it's fantastic to work at HealthEngine, which is what I've heard from everybody. But it's something that you've got passion about. You have a conviction. And your speech will be about taking that conviction and giving us a message of why we should get on board with this as well. So some topics in the past have been, someone spoke about the material waste that we send to third world countries and how they've got the problem and how we take our problem and give it to someone else. That was a conviction and a passion that they had. I've heard people talk about the need to get rid of single-use bottles of water and what the damage is to the environment. And to tell you the truth, I listened to that speech and I've never used a single-use container again. So these are the sorts of passions that people have and what's inside all of you. So we want to hear that speech. Now, as I say, it might be about, you might start off with a story, which is great, but there's a couple of pieces I'd like to pull together for how to do this conviction speech. Now, on your workbook, it's got on page number 19, it's got the layout of the conviction speech, and it's all about really engaging the thinking. Now, this time here, you will see there'll be the 4 words. So you're educating, persuading, inspiring, or entertaining. And you can do all 4 of those, because you can inspire us to make a change. You can just educate us, plus you can persuade us. That's fine, but just have some sort of idea in your head. This time, I want you to give yourself a story title, and I will ask for the story title. For instance, John's could have been today, write down your goals, or make sure your goals are written down. Like, that could be the title. So have a title of what you're going to be speaking about. I would like to be next week, introduce you with the title of the story, rather than here's Kathy, bam, or what now the story will be coming up. Same again, that headline. Now this time, folks, it's going to be really important, because whatever you're going to be speaking about must be in the body in the context of where you're going to take us. So now that there's conviction and there's a charity that you want to promote, or a situation or a problem you see in the world, give me something that throws us into it. And that's where the question, the quote, the statistics or the show and tell, or even just a story about how it affected you is really important. Now we get to the body and the signposting. Now there'll be three parts to this speech. So you'll actually have the three reasons or concepts about why this is important to you. This is where you could use a statistic, for instance, or what I call a story or a case study, where you give an example of where this has been used or something happened at that particular situation. That could be just one part of what I call my signpost. The next signpost is about a statistic, some sort of scientific evidence. And it all works around with the left and right brain. So the right brain people, they love a story. They like to know the case study and all the people involved in it. The left-hand side of the brain, that's those people that love the statistics. They need percentages and they've got evidence and scientifically involved. So we use both of those in our speech. So for instance, it could be you're reading a book, Brené Brown, Dare to Lead, about courageous leaders or vulnerability. It could be Dr. Stephen Covey's book on the 7 habits of effective people and how he talks about sharpening the saw. See, that little piece there just gives you a little bit of oomph and gets you in to say, hey, you know what, I know stuff, even though you might have only read the book or just taken a piece from it. Now, those are your three signposts. It's the body of your conviction of your story, of your speech. And then the last piece is the call to action or the provocative thought. Now, this isn't about, I'm telling you this story because, this is now wrapping it up by saying something along the lines of, so I really think it's important that we should slow down this whole the way that we spend our money on single-use bottles of water. So let's stop that and start using bottles that we don't throw away. That was the message in that rap that that young lady said. And I thought, you know what? She is right. I don't need to buy single-use water ever again. So I made a decision based on that speech. But she had all this evidence and information that got me to that point. So we're quite clear of has everyone got something they want to speak about that they've got a desire to get off their chest? Or it'd be like you're at a party and someone starts talking about that topic and you go, oh, I know about this. Get ready, here I go. That's the sort of speech that you'd be delivering because you have conviction. And that's easy to talk about. Where does this sit in your work? Well, when you're given a topic to talk about or give a summary or a status of where you are or what the team's doing, this is what you can actually use to get it as engaging as possible. So that's your starting point. All right. Now, what are we going to be looking for this time? So this time we're going to go back up into page, around about page 11. There's a couple there for me. So on page 11, it's all about using the language. Now, one of the most beautiful things about taking a message in your head and delivering it to someone in the audience is the use of a metaphor, an analogy. Usually starts with like. And the beauty about that is because it takes your concept and plants it in my head with something I already know. So for instance, a powerful story, a powerful speech is like a fine wine. It engages the senses and leaves a memorable experience. My speech is about public speaking. What that does, it sets it up. For people that either do drink wine or don't, they'll still know that about this. It's engaging the senses and it's a memorable experience. So using a metaphor or an analogy is something that can really plant the engagement really well. And the other part, like with Natalie used or was today, would be punishment and reward, using the opposites. I think Mark might have done something along those lines. Someone did, or was it Kathy? I have to go back. And you use where we go to the contrast. There's also the repetition. Now, this is something in your speech. If you want us to remember a particular piece, take the concept and pull it into just a couple of words. And then you just repeat those little pieces. So it's like a tack on. So, for instance, with Kathy's speech in regards to the wedding, locking up the wedding well, I think that was right, the wedding well, is it could be lock up. So make sure it's locked up, and you can use that throughout the speech, just so that we don't get that message moving through. Opposites, repetition, similes, alliterations like rocky road, big business, money matters, picture perfect, which is what Nathan used. You try and get some of those words really descriptive. Now, someone like Nathan, he's a bit of a wordsmith. That would be good for him to be able to pull words together that have the letters or sounds very similar. Gives us a flow, allows our language and our hearing to sort of tune in. There's a few things to think about there. And my last little bit is the rule of 3, singles, or even an acronym. So you can make up an acronym about your passion or your conviction. And then that allows us to remember what we're meant to do, or what you want us to do. All right. Now, how are we all feeling? Do we know what we've got to pull together and how we got to do? I'm seeing some nods. Now, nodding to me says you know it. Good on you, Jonathan. What have you got?
I actually had a question.
Yeah, good.
How long is the speech? Sorry, did I miss that?
We'll do it for 3 to 4 minutes again.
Cool.
And I'd like you to really push yourself to move it to the 4 minutes. Okay? And even if you need to go a little bit, I'll be lenient, but that just gets you really thinking about your speech. And if I could break that down. So on a 4-minute speech, I'll go 4 minutes, all right? That's only a minute worth of introduction, which usually is about 30 seconds. So your intro is about 20%, your outro is about 20%, and your body's about 60%. So headline 20, wraps 20, body's 60%. And if you break that down into simple numbers, you've got about sort of 30 to 40, 45 seconds at the start. You have that at the end, and the rest of it's in the guts of it, which really means that if you've got 3 signposts, it's only about a minute or so. And that's why you use these words like, you use metaphors, you use alliterations, because that minute is then really packed full of good information, really easily delivered. So good question, John. Thank you. Mark, have you got anything to add, or are you pretty good?
I'm good, I think. I need to think about it.
Okay. Do you have something that you're passionate about or you have a conviction for?
Well, nothing's coming to mind, but I think I just need to give it some thought over the weekend.
Okay, good stuff. I appreciate that. Andy, we're going to hear your wedding speech or best man speech, maybe. No,
Yeah, I'll prioritize that one. I'm sorry, and then I've actually got a couple of days off, so yeah, we'll see how I can deliver. But yeah, I'll keep you in the loop about how this one goes on Friday. I've definitely got some takeaways from today.
Good, mate. That'd be great. I'd love to see a video of it, but there'll be some camera work.
Possibly, yeah. John's going as well, so we might rope him into filming. Yeah, he can give my assessment on next Thursday.
Yeah,
John,
absolutely.
I'm going to hold you to that. I'm going to be looking forward to the evaluation.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
All right, thanks. Chris, how are you traveling? You all good? Any questions? Got something you want to
Yeah,
look
well
at
said.
that's come to mind?
A few fit things brewing. I'm just trying to figure out whether or not they're too boring for the exciting team group of individuals we've got. So I'll see how I go.
Okay. Now, if you take that word where you think it's too boring, everybody has something to say. And even today, all those stories that we heard, they're actually really interesting, very engaging. So whatever you've got, it's worth us listening to. But anyway, I'll leave that with you. That's up to yourself. Kathy, what about yourself? Any questions?
Just
How you
thinking,
feeling?
thinking through what topics. Yeah.
All right, good. And Natalie, what about yourself? You happy with the way things are traveling? You good? Just unmute just to hear your last bit.
Sorry, I was just thinking first thinking something related with design, but we won't use any, I assume with 4 minutes, we won't use any visual help. But yeah, just need to think.
Okay, that's that creative side of you, isn't it, Natalie? It's already starting to see something in there. Now, of course, folks, if you want to use a PowerPoint, like a slide, that's fine. But remember, that's 4 minutes. There'd really only be one slide. It's not a PowerPoint because we want to hear you. But if you feel comfortable, like Chris's story today about the view from the top, and it didn't take anything away from your story, Chris, but you notice that people said, "Oh, I wonder what that photo would have looked like." By all means, if you feel as if this is going to punch, then by all means you can jump onto it. We're right on time. You will get some more messages from me, and I'll put together some stuff to be able to keep supporting you on your journey. By all means, make contact if you need a hand or anything like that. No problem. And enjoy your rest of your day. And we look forward to seeing you next Thursday. And Andy, we can't wait to hear about how your wedding went. All right. See you
Cheers,
later,
Luke.
folks.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.